Okay. Just waiting for Chris Woodbury and Tony Pepe to join.
Tony's on.
Tony's there? Okay. I think Chris is dialing in right now. Chris, is that you?
Yeah, it's me. Sorry, I couldn't get on for some.
Okay. All members have dialed in, so we're ready to roll.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Announcement: this meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, pursuant to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have suspended public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. We are currently meeting remotely, and as such, all votes will be taken by roll call in accordance with Regulation 940 CMR 29.10 of the open meeting law. General discussion, we're going to continue from the February 23rd, 2020 meeting. Anyone have any thoughts? Questions?
I just had one, Chris.
Sure.
When I was, and I probably should have been a little bit more. I should have been more expansive on what I was trying to ask when I asked for historical data. I wanted to see what I was looking for was what other people have gotten in terms of, organization, what they've gotten as far as funding goes, because I want to make sure that, not only are we trying to do the right thing, but we're also being equitable and making sure that people get the funding that they need to get, and some people aren't being overfunded. And that was my fault, Tom. I should have been more specific in that request.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I can pull together what Bob is asking for pretty easily. I can do that. I can start working on that tomorrow by going back into the actual town meeting warrant, and I can pull together the actual funding amounts for the projects, and I can go back a few years and pull that together. That's not a problem.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that.
I had a question, Tom, for the fire chief on the bathroom first presentation. Is this something that is required currently, and we're just behind on that?
Okay.
I do know
go ahead.
I do know we do have female firefighters, and currently there's one bathroom and one upstairs, like gym/locker area. So I was just making sure that this would get us in compliance with any laws in the state that we might not be following currently.
Okay, I've noted that, Mr. Chairman, and I'll, as we go through the meeting, if there are other questions, I'll just keep noting compiling the questions here and make sure that the department heads are prepared to answer what's being asked.
To the chair, I have just a clarification or request for one. So our first meeting, which is the 9th, I believe, our first presentation meeting, that's fire, library, and Otis. Is that still the plan?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes. I'm pulling up the document right here. That there's been no changes to the Capital Committee department presentation. So on March 9th, you have fire, library, and Otis. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess along to expand upon what Chris is asking, is there I didn't see any backup paperwork, if you will, in our packet, and just maybe before the presentation it'd be helpful to if there was a quote or whatever the basis of the estimate was for that I believe $50,000 cost. I'd ask the same thing of the parking lot, the $100,000 proposed project as well.
Okay.
And I guess, I'm not necessarily looking for a Well, I guess the first step would be just what the basis of it is. If it's, if he had a quote done and just hasn't dug up the paperwork, or if it's a spitball, or it's, I guess just to develop a better idea.
Sure, understood. I have it noted.
Tom, I've got. Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Bob.
No, go ahead, John. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
So my last thing with the fire department is that just note that it appears the HVAC estimate that was provided is 2.5 years old.
Right.
And if it may be beneficial to get an update on that.
Okay, I have it noted through you, Mr. Chairman. I have it noted, and we'll pass these questions on to the fire chief.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Anyone else have any questions for any department heads over their requests for capitals improvements for their departments?
I guess I just have a question, Chris, and it might not especially pertain to department heads, although I'm sure it does at some point. The one eye-opening thing that Tom had said at the last meeting, and I understand these are all preliminary numbers, and until we get numbers fixed and set in place, I understand this is a fluid thing. It's going to be moving it's a moving target. But my question was, listening to this possibly going down to $400,000, it seems like there's not a great deal of money in the program to do some of the things that we want to do. So I guess that really concerns me. And I understand these numbers are bound to move and go up and down, until we finalize them. And I understand that. I'm just trying to understand this whole process.
Yeah. So typically in the process, what we're going to do is we're going to rate them according to the sheets that we have. Tom has been doing a decent job, and great job actually, of compiling all our input and listing top priorities, and then we take what we can. We do submit that to the Board of Selectmen through Tom with a cover letter, and then the Board of Selectmen will choose on what to do. Typically, it's usually a police cruiser is usually something we do every year. There's been one or two, maybe Tony can help me out, years that we didn't do a police cruiser. But usually that's typically one that we do. There was always one for the annual evaluation through their assessor's office that now is in their budget. So that's one less thing we do have to do. As you can see, looking through all these capital projects going out 10 years, there's a lot of need here through multiple departments. Being on an FMPC, this is one of the things we're working on, of how to satisfy all these capital needs and what we need to do as a town, because we know every year there's 2 to 5, 2 to 7 things we can do. There's 20 things we can't do. That the need doesn't go away; it's still there. Like the salt storage shed, we know we eventually need to do that. When I first was a selectman in 14, $400,000, $450,000 project. Now, last time I heard was $1.2 million, and that's in 6 years. So the cost of these projects will keep on going up, and up and up. So,
Mr. Chairman, one thing I think you'll see, all of you will see when I compile the actual appropriations, and I take that information out of the town meeting warrant, you'll get a sense, a pretty very good sense of what typically is funded for dollars in the spring. I don't have them in front of me right now, but last few years, if I recall, I think last year's spring, or maybe not last year, it wasn't a good example because of the COVID situation, but 2 years ago, I think the total spring capital spend out of free cash was maybe around 550,000. I'm thinking, plus or minus. So when I compile that information, you'll get a good sense of what's been able to be spent in the spring, and then when we get to the fall, there's typically a smaller capital spend where I try to engage departments on what are real urgent capital needs at that time. So each fall there's a second smaller round. So I'll get that out to the committee.
Thank you.
I guess my concern, and I remember this from 2008 when I watched Steve Tyler do a presentation on the highway department at that time, and they did a very, very thorough examination of all the roads in town. And one of the things that Steve said was, we can do every single road in this town for $8 million. That was 2008. So I understand how significantly this number jumps up. I mean, we did $17 million this year, and we did half the roads. So I understand. I totally get this, and that's why I'm trying to be very prudent in how we try to move forward with this, at least as far as my intention. And I guess my question for Tom would be, and this isn't to put you on the spot, Tom, but I just want to know, at what point will we know an exact number or a close to number of what we're going to be able to expend before we make a final decision?
That's a good question. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would say, beginning of next week, I'm going to start assembling the warrant. And that's a process that usually takes the better part of March. And I would estimate that by the middle third week of March, I'll start to have a pretty good sense of what those year-end shortfalls will be. So then that will help inform, what's left out of free cash for capital. So I would say, by the third week of March, I'll be able to share with the committee a pretty good sense of where we are. We'll be coming out of the snow season. I'll have solid numbers then, and that will be the largest year-end deficit we have to address. So I'd say third week in March, give or take.
And I'm not trying to pin you down to any numbers, Tom, because I understand this is a really fluid thing, and your situation, I don't envy it. It's I get it, because these numbers move constantly. I'm just trying to get an idea of, in terms of what's expected of us, and coming forward with an answer depending upon the numbers you're going to give us. And I get that. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
Tom, on one of these capitals, the library HVAC upgrades, I just standing right now on their HVAC system, we know it needs to be replaced. Is it still functioning, or is it, we don't know?
It functions. It's, however, some of the components don't function properly. There's an issue with the control system, because some instances you have a situation where in these sort of shoulder seasons, spring and fall, where you have the boiler on and the air conditioner going. So, okay. and this is largely a function of, I think, of the age of the system. Mm-hmm. It's an old system. It needs to be updated. What I'm going to try to do actually is have, if your committee is okay with this, Mr. Chairman, is to have Marty Vicky, he's the engineer from CA Crowley, call in. And he might be able to share some specific information with the committee. Is that something you want me to arrange, or?
Yeah. Just, I think we all have, well, I know I do. I don't want to speak for anyone else. Just the system specifics. He would probably know a little bit more than just trying to read it. I do know that they definitely need an upgrade over at the library. That's definitely a thing we've been hearing for 4 years plus. And I know we've been putting Band-Aids and bubble gum on it to get it through.
Yeah.
My question is the company that's doing it, the HVAC work, is that different from who did the boilers?
Yeah. So I have under contract CA Crowley Engineering. So to do the design services. So just the design services. They're going to draw up plans and specs. They're going to put the project out to bid, and then they'll handle the bidding, and then they'll finally handle the construction administration once the construction phase begins. So, and they understand that there's the chance. I was very direct with them. There's the chance that this might not be funded.
Right.
For all the reasons that you all have been talking about. It's a lot of money, and the resources are scarce. The free cash dollars are finite. But that's the plan. So I've sort of positioned this project, to go out to bid. So we have bids in hand before the annual town meeting. So we'll know the exact amount to go to town meeting with. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion from any members of the board?
Tom, I got a quick question. It's got a to be determined announcement on the spec sheet. Do we have any idea? And I'm not going to hold you to this because this is not under your purview. But is this something that we're going to know about? I would hope prior to being able to make a decision on this.
So the estimate here, it's going to take some time for the engineer to put this out to bid. I've forwarded to him all of the floor plans that we have on file. He's been to the library once. He's going to come out again next week. But we won't have bids in hand until sometime in April. There's a tricky state statute that comes into play here on the construction, on these construction projects. Once a bid opening for what's called the Chapter 149 project is opened, we can only hold on to the bid for 30 business days. So between the bid opening and the awarding of the contract, a town has to award the contract no later than 30 business days. So if the bids are opened, let's say in mid-April, and town meeting is the first Thursday in May, the town can appropriate the necessary funds. We'll know what the dollar amount is within the 30 days. So that came into play also with the senior center co-compliance project. The same. This is sort of a parallel track to that project as far as timing. But it's a long way to answer the question. We won't be able to have bids in hand until sometime in April.
So that, and this is through no fault of yours, obviously, but this obviously handicaps the committee. And that I'm not making that as a statement towards you, Tom. I'm just saying that this is state regulations and procurement process. I get that. It puts us in a really untenable situation to put everything else on hold until we get this information. I just, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But and this isn't my first time around with bidding in on these kind of projects, because I've done this before in my business. So it's like, but I never understood the other side of it. So I appreciate you explaining that.
Sure. Yeah. No, not a problem. I understand the point. I know it's just the situation we're in. That's right.
All right. Any other discussion from any members?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the rest of the committee, but I personally would like to go to the library and take a tour of the these the equipment and some of those particulars at some point. I don't know how I guess restricted the access is to the mechanical rooms and everything like that, and so I don't know how much planning or coordination that would take, but I personally would like to go and take a look at the library.
I'd second that, and along those lines, if this is important to the library, I would imagine they would get us in there to take a look at this and get this done.
Mr. Chairman, I can arrange that. That's not a problem.
Okay, I know a couple. So,
through the chair, we've done it before. Sorry.
Yeah, we have. I know we picked a day that everybody could go, and we walked through everything, and we looked at every single request. Whether it's the fire department's requests in the past, or even the sewer department, where they took us through and explained what they wanted to do. Even though they pay for it themselves, he still took the time down at the sewer department and showed us exactly what he was looking for and what to do. So we did take a couple of days and did that, and it actually worked out pretty good. I'm pretty familiar with most of this stuff, but the library, I haven't been in the library probably in a year since it's been closed. So I mean, I'm up for that, for maybe a Saturday next week or two, if that's possible. Just a morning, or Friday, or some day where we can just meet. It depends on everybody's schedules.
That sounds good.
I'm relatively flexible. I could, I don't think it would be spending a lot of time there. We might be able to squeeze it in an afternoon during the week, depending on people's schedule. Oh,
Yeah.
At least I could, say after somewhere around the 4 o'clock time frame.
Yeah. Tom, if you could just check with the librarian and
Sure.
let us know. Yeah, just what's probably best for her. Because I don't know how her schedule's going with COVID and access and everything else, and people coming and going in that building. I just want our employees to be safe. So.
Yeah, certainly. I'll reach out to Cheryl and I'll pick a couple dates that could work. I'll pick a weekday afternoon at like 4, and I'll see if a Saturday could work. And I'll share with the committee. You can let me know what you all want to do.
Perfect. Any other things, since we're on that subject, that anyone has any questions on or might want to take a look at?
I'd be kind of interested in looking at the Grandstand project at Luther Hill Park. I know little about it. I mean, I know they keep talking this is a historic park and a historic grandstand, but I don't know how that ties into the town or how much it's actually used. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know to what extent. And I mean before the pandemic, obviously not right now. Because 25,000 is going to be like, is that the beginning of this project, or is that the entire cost of doing the project?
Right through the chair. I think it's a phase
Yeah,
of the
phase.
repairs.
I guess that begs the question is how much is, because I have absolutely no idea. I'm asking questions because I really don't have any idea about Luther Hill Park. I've been there once. So I don't have any idea, how much this is used. Are there actually people in the grandstands that would actually, facilitate having spend this kind of money in phases to do this? I mean, is this just, because most of the time I've heard it's just softball leagues that are playing there. So I'm totally out of the loop on this one.
I do know going back, Bob, it was to secure the underneath the grandstand because they were having people set fires there and underneath. So there was to try to limit access to underneath, clean up brush, shore up some of the framing material. I do know that. But yeah, I mean, we could probably speak with, Rob Churchy about it, or Bill, or Tony. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to show us exactly what they're going to use the money for. I mean, maybe we can do that on the same day or same night, or probably during the day would be the best on that one.
Yeah, that would be great because, I mean, I saw the specs and what they're planning on doing and what they're talking about doing, and it looks like a total rebuild, and which is fine if it's a park that's used on a continual basis or there's that much of a demand on it. And I understand, like I'm more concerned with, putting security cameras at Luther Hill Park and Powder Mill Park and doing that kind of stuff that, to secure what we immediately have now that people are using actively. And I don't know how actively they're using, like I said, I don't know anything about O'Gara at all. So I'm just throwing questions out there because these are concerns I have. That's all.
Sure. If you could reach out, Tom, to them too.
Sure. Yep.
All right. I appreciate all your help.
Not a problem.
And just note, regarding the cameras, I know in past years we had funded, it had been a discussion in past years that, the correct scenario or the order of doing things would be funding the security cameras first, and then that will protect further investments. And if I recall, I know at least some of those requests were filled. Is anyone, I guess, aware of what the latest situation is, and if there isn't cameras anywhere?
I believe all their camera systems are up. I think we fulfilled those. The last round in the fall. Correct, Tom?
That's my understanding. That's right.
All right. Well, good. That's good. And back to the library. So the engineering services, that cost is not a part of the figures that we're looking at. Is that correct?
That's right. So through you, Mr. Chairman. So in the fall of 2019, town meeting appropriated $150,000 toward the library HVAC project. I used a portion of those funds to get the engineer under contract. So in that total came to $40,000. So that leaves a balance of $110,000 to go toward the construction end of it, which it's of course not enough. So which is why we would be going forward for a supplemental appropriation.
Okay. All right. So is that I guess, how is that structured? How is that $40,000 structured? Is that a hard estimate? Does that cover the construction services, the construction administration as well?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it does. So that was the fee proposal that I negotiated with the engineering company includes all design services from design development in the beginning to bidding and all the way through construction administration. So the fee, I think I had sent this to the committee in one of the reports, one of the memos. It might have been one of the longer ones. You have to kind of look into the memo to find where I believe I included the fee. If I didn't, I'll go back and look again. The fee proposal from the the engineer was $37,000, and it also included 6 site visits. But I ended up contracting with the engineer at $40,000 to account for, unforeseen conditions, an extra site visit, perhaps any reimbursable expenses, and the engineer understands that. Look, if this project goes out to bid and doesn't go to town meeting for supplemental funding, or even let's say it goes to town meeting and gets denied, well, that would then the engineer's work would end there. He wouldn't be paid on that final construction administration phase. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's one of the next questions I was going to have is how that would have been handled. Thank you. And I looking through the documents and I see C.A. Crowley's response, but I guess I didn't see the actual dollar figure anywhere.
Okay, maybe I didn't include that. So let me make a note, and I can send you the design, the fee proposal. I can do that tomorrow morning.
Thank you. And I guess that covers. Yeah, that kind of covers my library questions for the time being. And my only other question for this immediate round that we have coming up would be for the ODIS e-permitting request. Is I know it was discussed at one point, and I can't quite recall some of the details on it. Is there? I believe that was being put out to bid, or that was closing shortly. What was the status of that again?
Yeah, that's right, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so we put together an RFP that was issued in the early part of February, and the deadline was this past Tuesday, and we received 9 proposals. So the proposals included an envelope with a technical proposal, and then another sealed envelope with a price proposal. So you all probably know how this works. So the RFP process is not the low bid process. It's an alternative procurement method where a municipality establishes its criteria, and then the committee ranks the proposals based on how best they respond to or address the town's criteria. So that process is just getting underway right now. So I've asked Todd Miller to take the lead on that. So Todd and Dwayne Amos and George Russell, I've asked to serve as the review committee. So as I said, that process is just getting underway right now, and I don't think by March 9th we're going to have. I'm pretty confident we're not going to have the vendor selected by then. So the committee may want to take the discussion up on this particular item again later into March, when we will have a good sense of who the finalists will be and what the cost will be. So,
right.
and Mr. Chairman, if I could also add, and I might have said this at the last meeting, so the plan I'm hoping to move forward is to pay any one-time startup costs to get the system in place out of free cash. That would be in the, that would be in that would be the TBD number that you see on the 5-year plan. The annual maintenance fee or the licensing fee I have incorporated into the Otis expenses. Just wanted to make that clear. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just where they won't be open. Sorry, Chris.
Go ahead, John.
So the price proposals will not be open before March 9th.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. There just isn't enough time. The committee needs a little bit more time to review these. I think I'm giving them until Thursday, the 18th, I think is the date that I asked them to submit their rankings to me. But the capital committee can certainly take up the discussion later in a later meeting when I have the information to share.
Through the chair, that was kind of one of my next thoughts is, do we want to possibly swap the library and ODIS to a later meeting and bring something else forward to the March 9th meeting?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could suggest, I understand the intent, but what I'm trying to do here is line up. I'm trying to make things efficient as best I can for the department head. So, for instance, Cheryl will be presenting to the finance committee that evening, and I have Todd lined up as well. So my suggestion might be just you can hear from Cheryl, you can hear from Marty, Vicky is his name, the principal at Crowley, CA Crowley, on the 9th, and you can hear from Todd to give some background on the e-permitting. And then we can, I think that would suggest that the committee then, can take the subjects up again. I just prefer not to move things around too much, that's all.
Understood. I just had to ask the question.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion from anyone? Tony, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to confirm that our schedule is up to date and we have to wrap up our work by the 30th.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So ideally, that's the schedule that we've used. That would be ideal. If the committee needs more time, that can happen. Perhaps maybe the first week, even if the committee needs another week, I could post up a meeting that first week in April. The hard deadline here, if you're looking at the calendar, is when the warrant gets signed. That's on April 12th. So the committee, I'd have to have received from the capital committee the rankings. If not on the 30th, then perhaps one more week I could work with you, first week in April. But that would really be about the last, because we would be up against the April 12th signing of the warrant if it goes any further. That's all.
Yeah, I guess we'll play it by ear. Go ahead, Bob.
Yep.
No, sorry, Chris. So, Tom, my question for you is: if April 12th is the hard date, when will we have? I mean, feasibly, when will we have the numbers for exactly what we can spend and what we can appropriate? I guess what's our to die by date for that? I mean, and I know that's a moving date. I understand that it's a moving target.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. I would say, I'm confident that by that third week in March, I'm going to have a pretty good estimate of what will be available for capital. So I would say that third week in March, which isn't that far away, is when I'll have a good number. Now, end of March, early April can be a tricky time of the year with snow out here. There have been times where we get an early April snowstorm. That happened the first year I was in Spencer. And that obviously throws a wrench into the estimate, but that's what I would say. I would say by the third week in March, I can give the committee a pretty good estimate of what will be available for capital.
And that's fair. I understand. It's like snow and ice is a moving target too. It's like we had an April Fool's storm one year, so I get that. I just wanted to have some kind of an idea, just so clear it up in my head. Is what our dates are. That's all. And I appreciate that, Tom. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion.
One final, I guess, thought to the chair.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just reviewing our calendar here. From what I recall in the past, we'd have a joint capital and select board meeting, at the end of this process to get, I guess it's kind of I think it'd be billed as the capital committee's presentation to the board of our recommendations, after the select board receives the report from the town administrator, and so I believe we definitely did that in the past. I don't know if it was billed as a joint meeting, or if it was more of an informal, if it was just a plain select board meeting. But either way, I feel that would be, I think that's justified. I think that's useful. I don't know how the other committee members think.
So, Mr. Chairman, I can understand the value in having that meeting. I just don't recall. It may have happened when I was here early on. I just don't recall. That April 12th date, selectmen's meeting on the April 12th date could work. That's the same night the board. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know in the past when I was on the board, Capital Committee did just submit their rankings to the select board and went over, just 1 through whatever, and then they did present it to the select board at that time. We can definitely do it the 12th, because that's the night that they decide they make the decisions on what they want to put through and sign the warrant. So that will definitely work, the 12th.
Yeah, I think I think that's the best way to do it. And matter of fact, if I recall, it was, what year is this? Was it 2019? We had the capital committee right before the select board meeting, and the select board meeting started late because we were finishing up our rankings, and then we went straight into the select board meeting to discuss it. And that was I think an effective meeting, with having both committees there, so that it allowed the capital committee to express to the select board, I guess, what our thought process was, and just a little more back and forth that may not be readily apparent in just the text of a report, if you will.
I think not only that, but people are going to bring, the selectmen might bring something else to the meeting that, that we're overlooking. And it's important, I think, to do the due diligence. I agree with John.
Okay, so let's, Mr. Chairman, let's plan for April 12th. The Capital Committee will meet with the selectmen and give their, give their presentation. I think that would work fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
All right.
Sure.
I'll entertain a motion if no one else has anything else.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Bob. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Okay, seconded by John. Roll call vote. Tony?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you all for your time tonight. I'm sorry I was late. Going to get on. And Tom, thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, have a good night.
Thanks,
Stay safe.
guys.
Good
Night.
night.